So let's talk first about what's going on back in Washington, because they are playing a game of chicken with shutting down the government. How many are old enough to remember 1995 when Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich... Remember this? It was very exciting and dramatic. We're going to shut down the government. Of course, the cynical thing is to say, oh, well, the government is stupid. Why don't they shut it down? Well, when you don't get your Social Security check or your unemployment check, then you're a little pissed off about it. But John Boehner, the Republican leader, he's having a fight between his rank and file, the old school Republicans, and the Tea Party people who say, cut it or shut it. And they act like they're really bold people. They're going to cut this government. But you know what? They're chicken hawks. What they're cutting is for the kids, the poor, and the jobless. Show that picture we did. This is the food plate. This is the government. Most of it goes to defense, Medicaid, and Social Security. These big, tough guys have not put any of those items on the table. Once again, they're taking from the little sprig of parsley from the side of the plate that doesn't really matter. That's where all their cuts are coming from the kids, the poor, and the jobless. Your thoughts?
No, absolutely. That's one heck of an introduction, but no, I disagree. You know, I think, keep in mind one thing, that the House Republicans...
You disagree that's not where it's coming from?
Well, I disagree that that's what the focus is. Keep in mind, the House Republicans have been in office for about 3 months now, less than 3 months. They are just starting this move that they're going to do. At some point, we will be talking about Social Security. We are already talking about cutting defense spending, like the GE engine that the Department of Defense has said is unnecessary.
Why is that not first? Here's what you're cutting. Here's what the proposals are. Education, Head Start, elementary education, Pell Grants for college, transportation, EPA, Planned Parenthood, AmeriCorps, financial regulators, the people who would enforce the Dodd-Frank financial reform law, you know, that trying to stop
community health centers.
Right. National Institutes of Health, research facilities, the Center for Disease Control, job training, heating for low-income families. Bullies. Picking on the least able to...
Oh, hardly. I mean,
why
are all of these... You know, Bill, we can debate these programs and whether or not they're necessary, but is there no waste in these programs? Is there not a nickel per dollar that can't be better used
compared to defense?
When we have $14 trillion and we're willing to cut defense. Republicans, for the first time, are willing to cut defense.
Just to put it in perspective, this is from B4 of the New York Times, like buried. Audit of Pentagon spending finds $70 billion in waste.
Let's attack it.
Trump.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Well, why aren't they attacking it in
Let's start with the engine that GE makes, that the Department of Defense says they don't want and they don't need, but unfortunately is made throughout this country, so in state after state, district after district, where a lot of people are unwilling to do it, but Republicans are standing up and saying they're willing to do that.
But that's not what they're attacking.
But, Bill, you're missing an even more important point.
Uh-oh.
While they're going after children and Head Start, nutrition programs for low-income pregnant women, Social Security Administration, Pell Grants, etc., at a time when the middle class is disappearing and poverty is increasing, you know what they haven't thought of? They haven't thought of maybe after giving hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 2%, maybe ask the richest people in this country to pay a nickel more in taxes so we don't have to cut the Head Start program.
I mean... I want to show you, this is the cover of the Weekly Standard this week. It says, once more into the breach, because, you know, Libya, look at that. That's the F-22. Has never flown in combat anywhere. Not into the breach in Libya, not into the breach in Afghanistan or Iraq. It's not out of the hangar. No breaching here.
Well,
$70 billion for that, and we've never used it.
And once the discussion is phrased only in terms of cutting rather than in terms of revenue, for instance, I've heard there's a corporation called, is it the General Electric Corporation? What was it? How much corporate tax did they pay last year? Do you recall?
Well, they got a rebate.
I'm just approximately, wasn't it approximately zero?
They made $14.2 billion, and they got a rebate. Now, some of that is because the government designs that, as someone pointed out on the show last week, you know, you do get some bonuses when you try to develop new energy, as I guess GE is trying to do, but still, $14 billion profit? Well, they didn't plow it all back. into research, did
Bill,
they?
let me talk about education for a second, because John Boehner just introduced a bill this week that will reinstate a program that the Democrats let go fallow in 2009, called Opportunity Scholarships. 1,700 largely low-income, largely African-American kids in Washington, D.C. use those to go to the kind of school that the president sends his children to, which he has every right to do, is a very good thing to do, but ruled that children in the District of Columbia didn't have the right to do that on their own. Republicans not only want to reinstate that program, we want to grow that program, and I'm glad that John Boehner, instead of talking about hope, is actually trying to put it into play for these kids who have no other choice in schools that are crumbling figuratively and literally in our nation's capital.
But at the same time, you're going to throw over 200,000 kids off a Head Start. You're going to lower Pell Grants, which is the major source of federal funding for low and moderate income families who want to send their kids to college. 11 million families are going to be affected. You are devastating education. There is no question about it. Yeah. And I think that is simply unacceptable.
All these things I read, I mean...
But why then can the President and Senate... Why then can the President and Senate Democrats and congressional Democrats not stand for the kids in the District of Columbia and put this program back into place? Why let them stand in schools that are falling apart with no choice in the future?
The problem isn't 1,700 kids in one.
It is if you're their parents. It is if you're those children.
Sure, but in New York City there are 1 million kids in the public schools.
Let's give them that same opportunity.
I feel like you're the kid in class who had to read the whole chapter and you read one paragraph and asked a question on that one paragraph. What about